When Ubisoft launched The Crew, it was an okay game, but with continued support they made it a much better game. Now The Crew 2 is out, and it doesn't exactly feel like The Crew at all, despite it being set in the same USA, and sort of gathering a lot of the same aspects of what you've played in the first Crew. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but also there are some shortcomings. In The Crew 2, like I said, it's an open world game where you sort of traverse the USA, and within there are some major cities. They're not all major cities, some of the major cities, and a lot of space in between. And it's sort of that big space in between that is The Crew 2's biggest shortcoming. The first game didn't have a lot between the cities, but it was fun for a road trip sort of thing, especially if you've never been to the US. It got that seemingly pretty well. The thing is, playing it again the second time around just isn't a ton of fun. However, they do something that will make things a little interesting, in the sense that not only do you ride cars and bikes or motorbikes now, you also have planes and boats, and they can be switched seamlessly in the open world, and that is one of the more fun aspects of the game. You could be, say, flying over some mountains and you're like, hey, I'm going to switch to my car now, and then you drive down that mountain in your car and you come off a big jump, you switch over to your plane again, and that sort of switching in between create some of the most fun in the game. The only thing is there's no real reason to do so. You're not rewarded for pulling together some crazy combo stunts with your vehicles. You don't really get to do anything to challenge your friends with it, or even join your friends with it. There's no real reason to do it, and that's sort of really disappointing, because Ivory Tower has done a great job of the tech in this game, and I'll get to that now in a moment, but they've done this great job of being able to switch between your car and your plane and your boat, and you can have your boat going down a mountain or the pyramid in Las Vegas, and there's no real reason to do that. That's very disappointing. However, the technology is really impressive. The Crew 1 looked like an okay game. The Crew 2 is a stunning game. It is an absolutely beautiful game, unless there is one caveat to that, and that's some regions of the US, if you're flying pretty high, it gets pretty low res, more so than it probably should. But regardless, flying to changing into your car and everything, the world looks stunning. You're going through the bayou of Louisiana, to the sort of the mountains and Rocky Mountains of the desert, to cities, to snowy cliffs, and it's just so much variety in terms of sort of what you see in environment, and every single thing looks incredibly beautiful. And that's something that Ivory Tower must be commended, is that they've built an incredibly beautiful engine that runs very well and was always impressive. There was always something new to see that looked really impressive. Another thing though is, like, you don't really get rewarded for seeing those things, unfortunately, and the crux of The Crew really is you've got to build followers, and you can build followers by doing events or by doing sort of certain little stunt things in the world that are predetermined, like speed traps, like jumps, certain things like that. The thing is the event list sort of can be pulled up on a menu, and when you pull it up on a menu, you can just go through the motions of, I'll move on to the next one, I'll move on to the next one, I have to buy a new car, okay, I'll go to the HQ, buy a new car, and move on, and so forth, which means the open world nature of the game is completely negated and unnecessary. The events though, however, are varied, and I mean much more varied than I was expecting. There are so many disciplines on offer here, from street cars to drag races to F1 cars to bikes to dirt bikes to monster trucks to rallies to stunt planes to speedboats, and so many more in between, to be honest with you. And I was pleasantly, and I mean really pleasantly, surprised by how much variety is here on offer. It just isn't very exciting, just moving from one event to the next. But it does the job. There are some really unique and fun aspects to these events. There's ones where you switch between your vehicles during the race, but the only problem is there's just not enough. They do not take advantage of this cool aspect they've created. They've not taken advantage of it here. But when you complete events, there is a loot system. The only problem with the loot system is at the end of a race, a few random loot drop. They're color coded, which look pretty cool for those that like those loot games like Diablo or whatever else. The only thing is everything is always a few numbers more. Some of them may have extra buffs like help your sort of acceleration or build your boost a little bit, but there's nothing really drastic, and you sort of just equip them so you can then deal with the tougher races, and that's honestly about it. There's a sort of foundation of a fantastic, I mean beyond fantastic game here. There's a foundation of it being so incredible, but it just feels like they've held back a little bit because Ubisoft like to make living games, and they've put forward a roadmap for the year, and honestly they've got a great start here, but there's just something lacking in every single regard that sort of keeps it from being a worthwhile, not even a worthwhile, like an essential purchase. And when you have a game like Forza Horizon 4 coming up, it makes me worry about whether they will get to the point where they should be by the time that comes out. It's sort of a game that's good that you know that there's going to be support for a good while to come, but right now it just lacks a little bit in every regard, despite there being so much variety on offer, despite it being such a beautiful looking game. It just does not bring the motivation it really should.